Hello, we are currently having load shedding in South Africa, and this is something that you have to be prepared for if you're going to be visiting South Africa. So I am here today to bring you Kirsten's guide to surviving load shedding in South Africa. What is load shedding, I hear you ask? Load shedding is a system of planned power outages that kind of roll from one neighborhood to the next. So the powers that be intentionally turn off the power supply for, a couple of hours at a time. It can be up to 4 or 5 or even 6 hours at a time, depending on what stage of load shedding you are in. Why do they do this? I don't know. Whatever the reason, load shedding is an integral part of life in South Africa, just like the high fault thunderstorms and the hot summers and, like Table Mountain and lions and elephants. So if you're going to be visiting South Africa, you are going to encounter load shedding and you have to know how to deal with it. So these are my tips for what they're worth. So the first thing you're going to do is download this app. You can get it on Android or iPhone, and it is as close to a load shedding schedule as anything you're going to find. So all you do is you download the app, select the neighborhood you're in, and away you go. Simple, right? No, it is not simple. There are a couple of things that make this really complicated. First of all, it is really hard to determine what neighborhood you're actually in. My mom, for instance, lives in Bryanston. Which load shedding zone is she in? I don't know. I don't know if she knows. It is really hard to make that determination. So you have to kind of either guess or ask someone who lives in the area what neighborhood they have selected on their app. And you do want to try to find the right neighborhood because different neighborhoods go into load shedding at different times. And for the sake of planning, you want to have some idea of when you're actually going to have your load shedding. And the second complicating factor is that the load shedding happens in stages. So stage 1 will be, like an hour of load shedding once a day. And stage 8 is more than half of the day without power. And you might find that you are switching between stages at any given time. So, you might be in stage 4, and then tomorrow morning you'll be in stage 2, and then overnight you'll be in stage 3, and they keep switching the stages. It drives me crazy. I never know what stage we're in. And the other thing is that sometimes you will be expecting to go into load shedding because the app says you're going into load shedding, but whoever is supposed to flip the switch to turn the power off kind of forgets, and your power ends up not going off. Or what's even worse is that the power goes off and the person forgets to turn the power back on when the load shedding is supposed to end. So basically you have to be prepared to be without power at any given time. What the app does is it kind of gives you a vague inkling of something that might possibly happen at some point during the day. And it gives you a sense that you are doing something to prepare. But no, in all seriousness, the app is definitely better than nothing, so download the app. The next thing you're going to do, and you want to sort this out before you travel to South Africa, you want to make sure you have sorted out some reliable mobile data. Yes, you might be going to a place where they have Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi here works perfectly well, but if the power goes out, you could very well lose that Wi-Fi. So you don't want to be stuck in a place with no power, cut off from the outside world. So you want to have access to some mobile data that will kick in when you lose Wi-Fi. I have used both a physical SIM and eSIM, and at some point I will do a video reviewing the best data options for South Africa. But yeah, get some reliable mobile data. There are some good options out there. But yeah, don't assume that you're going to have access to Wi-Fi because you may not. Next, you want to do some creative shopping. If you are going to be preparing your own food, give yourself some options that you can prepare without needing electricity. So for instance, you might have access to a gas ring that you can use to boil water or heat up a can of soup. Or you might have access to a barbecue that you can grill your steaks or, just cook something else on. Or you may just want to, make a sandwich or a salad, or just make sure you can prepare food without needing electricity. That is important. While we're at it, don't get yourself too many perishables that require refrigeration. Refrigeration is fine. Most fridges will stay cold long enough to, see you through the load shedding. But my advice would be to not jam your refrigerator too full of things that could potentially go off if you don't use them soon enough. If you are like me and you have to have your cup of coffee in the mornings, make sure you know when the morning load shedding is going to start so that you can have your coffee prepared beforehand. It might seem a bit like overkill, but while I've been here in Cape Town, there have been days when I've woken up at 5:30 to make my coffee because, I really cannot wait until like 10 o'clock or whatever for my coffee. So if you have to have your tea or coffee at certain times of the day, if you have that routine going, you've got to make sure you can kind of work around the load shedding. Something you can do is get yourself a thermos flask, boil water, keep it in the thermos until you're ready to use it. That is something my mom has often done at her house in Johannesburg, and it works well enough. You still get your cup of tea and, it's fine. You just got to be prepared for that. It's also helpful to know what local businesses operate during load shedding because not all of them do. A lot of restaurants, for example, have generators that will allow them to continue cooking food or, just keeping the doors open while the power is out. And some of them don't. I have encountered a couple of coffee shops and restaurants that have just closed their doors when load shedding is on because they do not have any way of servicing their customers. And some businesses will kind of do a partial thing where they can prepare some things, but they do not have the power to supply all of their equipment. So it's helpful to know what the businesses in your location can do when there's load shedding. I know exactly which coffee shops in this area will still serve coffee when the power is out. If you are staying in a building, such as an apartment building, a hotel, anything like that, make sure you find out what will still work when the power is out. So for instance, in the apartment building where I'm staying currently, load shedding does not affect any of the gates. So you can get in through any of the gates. You can use the intercom to call someone. You can get in through the security door downstairs. Like all of that will work, and one of the elevators works. If you have a garage with an electric opener, that does not work during load shedding. So find out what works, how you can get in and out when there's load shedding. Usually, a hotel at the very least would have a generator. They might stay fully operational. And, but some of them might just have some things that shut down. So they may shut down most of the elevators, or they may restrict entrance to certain entrances. So just find out so you can be prepared, and that makes it easier for you to plan when you're going to go out and when you're going to do other things. If it is during the day, turn on a light switch. When the power goes out, turn on a light switch, and that way you will immediately know when the power comes back on. And conversely, if the load shedding starts at night and the power goes off, you're using candles or flashlights or whatever the case may be, before you go to bed, make sure you turn off the electric lights. Otherwise you will wake up in the middle of the night with all the lights kind of blaring at you, so you don't want that. And finally, have a sense of humor about it. Is it inconvenient? Yes. Is it annoying? Yes, it can be. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's just kind of part of life in South Africa right now. So the best thing you can do is just laugh about it.
Name a reason why you would light a candle. Sadiqa.
Load shedding.
And as long as you plan for it, it's really not too bad.
What did you say?
Load shedding.
While I've been here in Cape Town, I have actually not noticed the load shedding too much. The biggest thing I've had to do is just plan my morning coffee. But other than that, the load shedding has hardly affected me at all. So that was my guide to surviving load shedding if you're visiting South Africa. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you again soon.